Alex Lykos, actor, screenplay writer, playwright. Let's have a conversation. Okay, so from tennis to acting, tell us about your transition between sport and the theatre. Were they always two passions running parallel, or did one come after the other?
One came after the other. I used to play sport, grew up playing sport, growing up here in Marrickville, and I came back. I was living in America and came back here, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and did a little acting course, once a week for about 5 or 6 weeks, just to kind of meet some new people, get back into the flow of life in Sydney, and I enjoyed it. And then I started writing some stories about my time in America, actually some little kind of stories about all the photos that I'd kind of assembled throughout that time, and I enjoyed that process quite a lot, and it kind of just grew from there. I enjoyed it, and here we are 15, 16 years later. And
as an aspiring actor, why is performing in Shakespeare's plays so important in this day and age? Like, you played in a couple of Shakespeare plays, like Othello. Mm-hmm. What did you get out of it as an actor playing, tragedies such as Othello?
I think the language, first of all, is so rich. I think it's a good base to learn from as an actor. Shakespeare's stories, resonate today. So you learn so much about storytelling and about performance, not in the kind of stereotypical way of how people view Shakespeare, with his very strange intonation, but you learn about the basics of acting, the basics of objectives and actions and all those types of things. So it lays down what I think a very good foundation as an actor, and they're really interesting to play because the characters are so rich and so complex. So they're really hard to play and very interesting to play.
Okay, and now writing your own plays and screenplays is an enormous step. It's one thing to be an actor, and it's another thing to be a playwright. It's like not every soccer player becomes a coach.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me, for instance, you did the Alex and Eve tragedy, for instance, and that was a massive hit, both on stage and on screen. Where do you get inspiration for all these ideas?
Just, I guess, the cliche, just live and observe, and we all have our thoughts and our views on life, and areas of life that we like to examine, and you kind of let that sit with you, and the ideas just kind of emerge. I love writing. I think writing is my first love, and I just love examining humanity, and we're going through a very difficult time at the moment, with so many different things happening within the world. So it's a good time as a writer to examine our place in the world. So yeah, it just kind of comes organically, really.
Right, you're back with a new production, Jawbone.
Yep.
Right. Now, it's a long process to get a play on stage. So tell us a little bit about how you came about Jawbone, and what's the process of getting it on stage?
Interestingly, on stage, it's probably a little bit easier to get it on, get a show on the stage, whereas a film is a much more exhaustive process. And it came about during COVID. I think we all just got hit via the lockdown. Again, just examining what it means to be isolated, lonely, our place in the world, our regrets, just where we're at. And I started writing the show, and I thought, well, because back in April we didn't know what was going to happen, and I thought, well, I can't do an ensemble piece of a cast of 6 or 7. How are we going to rehearse it? How are we going to perform it? One person gets COVID, then the show's cancelled, not knowing what was ahead of us. So I thought, well, what if I write it as a one-man show? And as I began drafting it, I found it quite intriguing, this breaking of the fourth wall with the audience and talking to them. And as it evolved, I kind of really fell in love with the form. And of course, I then started rehearsing it at home to a brick wall, which obviously with COVID really fit, and allowed me to get it rehearsed. And we did a special test audience performance a week ago, which went really well. So hopefully now we can go to the next stage and put on a preview performance to a paid audience and see how they respond to it. And I've got the time to tweak it because, during COVID, we're still operating at, limited capacity.
So tell me, is Jawbone autobiographical in any way, or are these your observations about society?
I think, you may attest to this, but with all storytelling, there is an element that is autobiographical, but we can't just stick to our own lives, otherwise it would be quite boring. Any show would be quite boring. So there is elements that are autobiographical, there are elements that aren't autobiographical, but holistically and thematically, I think, there is an autobiographical element, because I think we've all gone through the sense of isolation, especially those in Victoria, and have had the time to reflect on our lives and where we are at in our lives.
So with Jawbone, what can audiences expect?
That's a good one. Look, the feedback so far has been that they've laughed, they've cried, they've laughed, they've cried. It's been quite a significant emotional roller coaster ride for people that have come to see it so far, and that was the intent, to tell a story that takes people on a significant journey, which hopefully reflects the path we've been on in the last 7, 8 months or so.
Tell us about the preview dates.
November 26th on Thursday, and if that goes well, we will then follow it up with one on September the 28th. Sorry, I'll do that again. Got that.
Tell us about the preview dates.
So we're doing a preview performance on Thursday the 26th of November, and I don't know whether audiences are ready to come back to the theatre. If they are ready to come back to the theatre, we're going to do one again on Saturday the 28th of November. But again, all depends on how we go on Thursday the 26th.
Alice Lykos, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, thanks for your time.